Rony Vernet is a UFO researcher, engineer, and is currently studying for his master's in physics. It's so valuable to hear Rony's point of view on UAP and other hard-to-explain phenomena, as he's predominantly researched cases in his native Brazil. We talked in detail about UFOs and other mysteries, including psychic phenomena and the famous Chupacabra. Timestamps are in the description, and we hope you enjoy the episode. So, Rony, tell me how and when you first became interested in the UFO phenomenon.
Since I was a child, I had a lot of the science veins running in my blood. So I always get interested about these topics that some says that is fringe and no scientific or pseudo-scientific. So and UFOs was one of these topics. Since I was a child, we had a lot of openness in Brazil talking about this topic. We had a lot of news about it. We have a lot of documentaries about it. So I grew up in an environment very, very rich in information. We didn't have internet, but we had on TV a lot of information about UFOs in the mainstream media in Brazil. Mm-hmm. And I think this is one of the reasons for me to be influenced to always question, this they are showing, is this real? Is this possible? Why they are not studying it? And I grew in this environment. I think this awakened this feeling in me to investigate, to study, to get interested more and more about this topic.
Wow. Cool. So yeah, you say in Brazil it was very open. It was very openly discussed on the TV, on the news, and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So was it something that all, were you a kid when you first got into it? Was something that all kids?
Yeah,
like,
it was a kid. Maybe
I
don't know. I remember I was 6
or
7, and I already was watching all these documentaries and news. 1 year after I was born, we had in 1986, the Brazilian official UFO night, where all the Air Force goes to TV to a press conference and says, these 21 objects invaded our airspace. We tried to chase them, but we are not successful. They permitted all the officers to give interviews, to say what they saw, how they managed to try to chase these lights. So this example about Brazilian openness about this topic, but unfortunately, after this episode, I think they have received some kind of pressure to not be so open about it, and we have never had any event like that on TV with the Air Force and so on after this episode.
Yeah. Were your friends and stuff interested in it too when you were young, or was it were you a lot more interested than everybody else around you?
No, I think I was some kind of isolated by myself and reflection. Yeah. No one to talk about it. Even my parents was not interested in it. My brothers also neither. I think maybe sometimes I think it's something that came with me when I'm born and something like that, because I got interested very, very early in this topic.
Yeah, that's interesting. What do you think, or how would you kind of categorize the general opinion on this phenomenon across Brazil, or like the Brazilian take on this? I know it's going to be different for each person and maybe different in different areas and age groups and different categories of people, but how would you generalize that?
Yeah, I think people in Brazil, the most are skeptic, but as we had a lot of episodes, for example, this Brazilian UFO night, the Varginha incident, the Operation Saucer, and so on, we have a lot of people that they are skeptical, they question. I'm skeptical, okay, but I think that's a big possibility that could be real. And I think Brazilian people are healthy skeptical because they have this doubt, this question in their heads, always asking, I think it could be real, maybe, I don't know. And a lot of interesting, because a lot of Brazilian people don't know about the details about the the Varginha, for example, the Brazilian UFO night. Some people even don't know Brazilian UFO night, for example. And you present the data, they say in the interviews, in the historical documentaries, they say, "Oh my God, I didn't know about that. How I didn't know about this event that was so important." So and this happens not only with UFO topics in Brazil. This happens a lot of topics. People simply doesn't investigate and doesn't search for this kind of information. And when you present, you have a lot of surprise, a lot of interest of these people. And I think in one of my one of little things that I can do for this topic is to to communicate people what's happening in the past, and let people for themselves go and search for themselves and search and began this internal search for the truth.
Yeah. That's, I suppose a lot of that is going to be similar to people from everywhere across the world, like they're kind of not looking beyond the surface level and not being aware of lots of things underneath. But when it comes to the perception of the UFO phenomenon, what would you say are some of the main differences and maybe similarities as well between US and Brazil? And I'm thinking in terms of like government, how they handle it, how the media approach the subject, how scientists look at it. And you kind of just talked about the general population, but yeah, what about the government, media, and science? How does that differ?
Yeah, I think, as I said in the beginning, in Brazil have a lot of more openness from the government to talk about that. We have a lot of senators, a lot of congressmen already interested in this topic. I'm in contact with them. And US, we are starting to see this movement now. The Congress interested, the Congress want to know, and I think we had it already in Brazil. But because a lot of reasons, a lot of political instability, we always, when you are trying to go to grow this topic, to get interest in this topic, the politicians move to another problem, and we have a lot of problems to deal. So I think we never have a real evolution in form of legislation, in form of laws here in Brazil, and also in science. We have a lot of scientists in Brazil that would like to search, to do research about this topic. I have talked to a lot of them, as I said, I'm doing my master's in physics, and I'm in contact to a lot of doctors, PhDs in physics, and they say, "Rony, this is fantastic. I really like this topic, but I don't have any motivation, any money from the government to do research in this topic. I don't have the motivation to do it, and simply we don't research, we don't go further just because of that. If government says, okay, I have the money to study it, you have these prizes, and go on and search in detail, I'm sure they would do it. And this is something I'm pursuing, in contact with the scientists, in contact with politicians, and try to do legislation here in Brazil soon too, because I think this will be this topic will be more serious here in my country if we start with the Congress, with the legislation, and the motivation to do the scientific things, scientific stuff.
How often would you say it's like featured these days, the UFO phenomenon, like in modern times? How often would you say it's like featured on TV, and when it is featured on mainstream TV, like again, what's the vibe? Is it taken very seriously, or is it still, because again, in the US and probably the UK and probably lots of places, it's still often accompanied by the kind of spooky X-Files type music whenever it's mentioned. So I wanted to know, is that still similar out there in Brazil?
Yeah, in the beginning of the 90s, we had since from the end of the 80s with the official UFO night in Brazil, and the beginning of the 90s in Brazil, have a lot of mainstream media covering. I would say every month we had a special or documentary in mainstream media talking about UFO cases in Brazil. But after the Varginha incident in 1996, the government clearly tried to cover up things, and one of the things that they do is to make jokes with the Varginha incident to avoid interest of people in this incident. And I after this 1996, the mainstream media stopped to cover this topic, as this previously I said in the beginning of the 90s, end of the 80s. So I think the Varginha incident was something like a block in this topic because of the government cover up.
Yeah.
And but nowadays, after the U.S. revelations about the Tic Tac and the Pentagon programs and so on, the Brazilian media started to do some very very good pieces of news in the mainstream media, and I think we are beginning to start again the conversations and the good coverage here in Brazil, and a very very serious one.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's positive. From all your research in cases in Brazil, and I'm sure you've researched cases in the US as well, and across the rest of the world, have you noticed any kind of subtle differences in how it kind of manifests or how it appears? Are there any little changes with how, like, what people witness in Brazil versus what they witness in the US? Things I'm thinking, like maybe there'd be more sightings of orbs, or maybe there would be kind of UFOs around slightly different types of settlement or installations, or it could be anything, but have you noticed anything like that?
Yeah, we had a lot of cases in Brazil, very aggressive cases involving beings.
Yeah.
If you look from the 40s to the 60s in Brazil, we have many cases with involving beings and people, and aggressive cases, hurting people and even causing death to people. A lot of this case was investigated by a former official UFO body in Brazil, of the Air Force, and they investigated a lot of these cases. We have in 70s and 80s like reducing, like a mitigation in these disappearances of these cases involving beings. A lot of is isolated ones. In 90s we had the and also in 70s we have the Operation Saucer in the end of the 70s, but it's something like isolated. It was a lot of serial episodes during almost 2 years, but after that everything faded out, and we didn't have notice of any new cases.
Mm-hmm.
And finally 90, we have 1996, the Varginha incident involving also beings. So I think in Brazil the difference is this case is involving a lot of different beings, a lot of different typologies, from beings resembling like little childs, like different animals or insects. For example, Varginha case, the beings were like a frog, like an amphibious reptile creature. We had a lot of cases in Amazon where we have beings resembling big wolves, big dogs, and we had also Operation Salsa, for example. People say most human or oriental, maybe Chinese, Japanese kind of beings, logically with very different characteristics, but big eyes and like oriental eyes. And so we have a lot of riches. We have a lot of rich cases involving beings in Brazil. I think this is the difference. I'm becoming to notice a pattern here in Brazil. It's a pattern that's happening right now in the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe after the Varginha case, we have cases involving beings, and these cases involving beings are always correlated to bodies of water. For example, big rivers, big lakes here in Brazil.
Yeah.
This is a pattern that's very, very consistent, including I can tell you that I will this week release a never seen footage of testimonies and case involving two families, and they also recorded a video, not a very impressive video, but it's a video that is historical and need to be released by these families. These families saw ships and saw beings very, very close to them. And these families approached me last year, the end of last year, and I will be releasing all this documentation this week. And this is a clear example of a city that is located around a very, very huge body of water. So I think we have this more and more cases we study, we have this correlation more and more strong. I study
Yeah.
a lot of hills, regions with a lot of big mountains. And these regions in forests, big mountains, we have a lot of light phenomena, luminous phenomena, luminous phenomena that's orbs that seems to be controlling intelligent because they respond sometimes. What you do if you emit a laser light against them, they respond with huge flashlights and something like that with different changing colors. I'm currently trying to document that. So I think in Amazon also, I have visited a lot of cities in Amazon. We have a lot of different beings appearing in the forest. And if you go inside the forest, in the house inside the forest, and you talk with these people, it's very, very common that people say, "Oh, I was chasing animals, and when I was chasing animals, I saw a big creature that was different of everything I ever saw. And I'm in forest every day. I see all the animals." And so we have these patterns in Brazil. I think a very rich pattern because Brazil is like US, a continent away with a lot of
Yeah.
environments. I think the big difference, Brazil is a very, very preserved ecosystem, a very, very preserved forest and rivers. And I think this is one of the reasons that we have this rich uh, cases here in Brazil. That was one story. I was in Amazon last year, talking with some fishermen there, and they said, "Oh, when this was an isolated place, very most preserved one, I could only go to my house in a boat because we don't have any roads here.
Mm.
We saw a lot of beings. At this time, with more preserved ecosystem, we had a lot of beings. When and let's say beings are not animals, it's some crypto beings or something like that.
Humanoid kind of thing.
Humanoid beings there with different aspects, with different animal aspects. And they said when they start the progress, opening the roads, more people coming, I noticed two changes. The one change is I don't have any animal to chase. All the animals that I was chasing, they were migrated, they were gone. So I started to get hungry because I don't have my subsistence, my food to because they live by chasing animals. They don't have go a market to go and buy things. So
Yeah.
they were in the middle of the forest. So the animals went away, migrated, and also these beings, these humanoid beings, also was gone. They never saw. So I think this phenomenon is very, very linked to what we call a shadow biome, where we have our world animals here, and also this interdimensional something like that beings in this environment. When the human interferes, the human goes that and change this environment, everything is gone. They migrate to another areas, and see this other pattern that we are seeing. But just to conclude this big picture, I think as we have a lot of preserved ecosystems, we have more cases, more rich cases than other countries, and also a lot of cases involving different beings.
Yeah. Wow. That is fascinating. You're right. There's a lot there, but it's all fascinating. There's so many little bits I want to ask you about. I mean, these big dogs, wolves, things that people have seen in there. Like,
Yeah,
have
it's a
you?
very common one. These big dogs we call in Brazil the lobisomem, something like the werewolf here in Brazil. We have two beings that appear constantly. One is the Chupacabra, that's the
Mm-hmm.
being that mutilate animals. A being that can jump uh, big heights and has something like big red eyes. And I know people that saw this kind of beings meters from 2 meters, 3 meters away in some location. I talked to them directly. And we have these werewolves. In Amazon, we have a lot of these stories of werewolves. I talked to a lot of people that saw them, people that have a very 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 compelling story. This story is recalled by a mayor of a city in the Amazon, the same state of Operation Saucer, that's Pará. And in Pará, this mayor, which is funny because this mayor that had the start of this werewolf is the son of the mayor that passed all that stuff with Operation Saucer, with the Air Force, in the ships invading that state in the 70s. And many years after these events, his son became a mayor of the same city and testimonied this event with this werewolf. And this event was very compelling because he was in his house. He's a mayor of the city. And this is a small city, so people knock the door. If something urgent is happening, people simply knock the door of the mayor saying, "Mayor, you have to do something. Something's happening." And he was resting in his home. People knocked at his door and said, "Oh, we had a huge werewolf that's terrorizing our village. You have to do something. There's people fighting with this werewolf." And the major put the clothes, get a weapon, a rifle, and go to the Russia to the village to see what was happening. A lot of people, confusion, people screaming. Oh my God! He remembers he saw like a black blur thing moving. He didn't saw the werewolf, but he saw big, very big thing moving and disappearing. And one person approached it. The person was covered with, his clothes were scratched, completely scratched. He was in a very very tired, and he fighted and something like that. He was dirty, but no signal of blood. And the person said this guy fighted with the werewolf, and he fighted with a weapon. I don't know in English the name of the weapon, but it's a weapon they use in the rural areas. It's a very sharp one. It's a curved sharp one. They use like an axe, but not axe. They use to agricultural. It's we have a hard and a curved blade. It's not axe, but it's something like a knife, but it's curved. And he remembers that he hit the creature many times, and remembers the hits almost closed immediately. Doesn't affect the creature, and he was scratched many times. This is the reason that their clothes was completely destroyed. But the hit by the creature didn't affect him. The wounds almost closed immediately also. So one could not affect each other. And the major talk of all these people with this guy and testimony this, and have a video. I don't have this video right now, but we have a video when this major recalls all this story that he was present. And this is not isolated one. This happens every time in Amazon. We just simply don't know because it's an isolated area. We don't have contact with these people. These people sometimes be afraid to come forward and tell about these things. But this is something, just one example of the rich stories we have in Amazon.
Yeah, it's amazing. And the Chupacabra thing, how would that look compared to this kind of big wolf? Would that be a similar looking thing, or is it very different?
No, the Chupacabra is very, very different. Something like a more smaller creature, a more curved one with kangaroo legs, very strong legs because they jump very, very big heights. Very haired one in the back. We have, if you put in the Google, you see some very, very image that people say that this represents very, very well the Chupacabra thing. They have hands that's curved this way, and they have a lot of rich characteristics that's depicted in pictures and images. You have internet, you can and testimonies and people witnesses say that this is very very seems to be the what they saw with their eyes.
Wow. And from what you understand from like the research that you've done and the people you've spoken to, like do you think is it real? Is it a real thing?
Yes, because if you talk with these people, if you see in their eyes the emotion and how they seems to remember everything they live it in these cases. Is and I interviewed a lot of people, maybe I don't know, 1,000 people in all these years doing this research, and I can recognize when people are telling something that changed their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we could have outliers, we could have people that simply believe they live it, that, and logically, if they believe, they will recall life for you a very very trustful way. But I think a lot of the most of the sites we have in Amazon, for example, people very very poor, people don't have nothing, people don't have any reason to invent these stories.
Mm.
So and some people have to insist a lot to they talk because they simply doesn't want to talk about it. This
Yeah.
example, the story that they'll bring this week, these two families stayed in silence for 20 years because they simply didn't want to appear. They are very, it's a small city, very near of Varginha, where I have a lot of cases in the state of Minas Gerais. And these people is, since the village is very, very small, these people simply doesn't want to talk because people will say, oh, you're crazy. So people have a lot of more to lose than to gain
Mm.
talking about these stars, and this is one of the reasons that I think this some of the testimonies are real.
Yeah. Wow. It's amazing. And what do you think is there a UFO connection there? Like again, are there sightings of UFOs or lights in the sky when these things are happening in some cases, or do you believe there to be any connection or not, or none at all?
Yeah, in the chupacabras we have some correlation between lights in the sky and these beings. For werewolves, we don't have a lot of correlations here.
Mm-hmm.
I had we have two different patterns here that I can distinguish. We have some technological devices, ships that comes, and we saw beings going out of these ships and aircrafts and so on. And we have some like interdimensional, some lights that simply appear from nowhere and have beings coming from these lights, and they after that just simply disappear. So I think we have a lot of phenomena happening in the same places. I in 2020, one of the things that uh, uh, get my interest a lot of this topic is that in 20,000 I was investigating mountainous some region with a lot of mountains and hills here in Brazil called Serra da Beleza, in English called Beauty Hill. And I saw this region is known for the light phenomena, luminous phenomena that appears with a crazy frequency there. And one of the nights I was doing my video there, I was just staring the night to see if I could observe any phenomena. I saw this big light coming on top of the hill. I get my binoculars. This big light vanished, and in place we have three beings, very very tall, big black beings. I get totally out of control, scared. And this is one of the episodes that I saw with my own eyes that says to me that we have a whole different phenomena, like something interdimensional and something like that, out of our reality that simply enters not by a ship, not by a craft, is something going from the water or going from the space, but simply from nowhere, simply from a portal opening and something like that. And so this is the reason I think we have a lot of different weird things happening at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. So did you say just then you saw beings? you were looking through your binoculars?
Yes, very, very scary beings, because it was different of everything that we saw in videos, in pictures, of images. Was very, very black beings, like 5 meters of height. Very, very black, not a solid body, but a fluid body. They could fly and something like that. And I saw with binocular very, very close, like with binoculars like 10 meters, 50 meters.
Yeah.
And they were looking in my direction, knowing that I was there. This at the least was what was my feeling. My feeling was they was observing me. So I got it completely out of control. My dog was with me. My dog was totally scared, wanted to run away, and I did the same. I ran away with my dog. I take some pictures. I have these pictures. I have a little, very, very, very bad quality video, and some of the register that I could do, even with this situation that I have passed at this moment. Because sometimes you go to the night and you realize, oh, I will see some beautiful lights, I will see some beautiful beings like angelical ones, and you're there, and yep, you in front of these very, very scary beings, like totally different that you were imagining, totally black, weird faces, and your plans to film it, to register it, simply was gone at that moment.
Yeah.
So this is very, very complicated, and only the people that go to the field and go to investigation, go to try to find the truth, know how it's the feeling to be in that kind of situation. Because sometimes people say, oh, why did you not go there? Did a good movie, a good picture. It's something unpredictable. It seems like everything you plan it. You plan a lot. You plan months, and when you get the situation, you simply get out of control, because there is always something different that you have not planned before. So this is something that we have to deal with.
So were they floating? Were they like in the sky?
Yeah, they were. This was at top of the mountain. I could show a picture. This is a base of the peak of the mountain. This light came very, very bright, a golden light, like a yellow to orange light, like a melting iron. Become very big, like a sun, but it's a sun that I could stare. And this is something that happens a lot in Brazil, happening in Operation South, also happening a lot of sightings that I had, a lot of big lights, intense lights that you could stare without hurt your eyes. This is something very, very strange. And this happened in this case, a big, like a sun, I could stare on it, a monstrous light that started to vanish. In place, we had these beings, 2 to 3 beings. They started like staring at me, like this motion, a very different kind of motion, because I said it was fluids, not a normal one, static body. And they started to do the revolutions, and this totally freaked me out, because it was like a ghost, like floating like that, some very fluid, like waves, this black thing. It's very, very scary.
And you said you kind of saw they had scary faces. Do you remember the faces?
Yes. I get in a situation I've got in a emotional status that I couldn't remember details. But what I remember is I could see they had eyes. I could see they had mouth. But I got in a so I could see they were staring at me. But I was in a totally freak situation that I couldn't remember details. This is something that is motivating me to do something like psychological regression and something like that, so I could remember details and so on, because I'm interested in that. This terrorized me so much, so I didn't want to remember this in my mind, what I saw for 2-3 months. It affected me so much. I was at 400 meters afar, reasonably far distance, like a secret distance, but they was they was looking at me. So I didn't know if they could simply go and appear in front of me. So this scared me so much. I was with my binoculars. I looked for maybe 5 to 10 seconds. I didn't learn to look more. And I simply run away, put the things filming, my camera filming, and I gone, simply gone.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds terrifying. Do you think you will do the regression at some point to kind of bring back some of your memory of that, or you just don't want to access it? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it would be great. I tried to contact two great psychologists here in Brazil. One is living in Portugal, so I couldn't do that, and one is living in São Paulo, which is very near from Rio, Rio. And I planning to do this year this regression. I wanted to show you some images here about this event. I think people get interested. I have a lot of a whole video documenting it in my YouTube channel. I can pass you for your listeners to get access to it, to have photos, to have videos, not big quality ones, but something. It's a little piece in this puzzle. Just to get you. I will share my screen just to you to see some.
Yeah, cool. Oh, you can also send me. You can also send me the images after as well, and we can kind of put them on the screen.
Yeah, I'll do it.
And send me any other links and stuff, and I'll make sure.
Yeah, because the screen sharing is disabled. I tried to share my link, but the screen is disabled. I send you the link of YouTube. I send the original images, the original videos, so you can see and share. Okay.
Yeah, ideal. Yeah, send me as much as you can, and we'll try and get as much as we can on screen, and people will be able to see and watch it. And I'll put the link as well. But wow, that's fascinating. Thanks again for sharing that. Let's move forward and kind of change up a little bit. So excuse me. So in June last year, 2022, there was the Brazilian open hearings, right? In the Senate, I think, or just public open hearings anyway, to discuss the UFO phenomenon. It was like live on YouTube on a few different places, and there was lots of notable people talking, including Captain Robert Salas. I think Lou Elizondo was doing like a remote video thing to join in there as well. Just tell me a little bit about that whole event. I do have a couple of specific questions, but to start us off, like, just tell me about the whole thing, what your takeaways were, your thoughts on it, and let's spend a few minutes discussing it.
Yeah, I do a few contributions to the UFO magazine in Brazil. They have decades of publishing, and I was a friend of AJ Gevaert. So AJ was the most known ufologist in Brazil. AJ passed away last December. Yeah. Unfortunately. And at that time in 2020, 2021, I approached Gevaert and I said, Gevaert, we need to do something more incisive, more deep to evolve this topic in Brazil. So I think we could do what they were doing in US, involving politicians to they become aware what's happening, bring the most compelling case for them, the documentation, because a lot of politicians are simply skeptical and they just simply search or get interest about that. So I think we could get interest for them. And so AJ said, oh, Rony, I'm already in contact with a senator, which was the Senator Eduardo Girão in Brazil. And we are planning to do an open hearing about to show in the Senate these cases. The main goal was to present the main cases that we have official documentation in Brazil. And so the military and the congressmen, the senators could get interested about that and start to help us to have more information about this. So we was in COVID pandemic, so we couldn't do anything at that time. But 1 to 2 years later, in 2022, we had this big event in Senate. This event had the support of Senator Eduardo Girão and more 7 senators. So we had in total 8 senators supporting this event. It was realized in June 24th in the International UFO Day We had, like you say, Bob Salas coming. We have Gary Resentine coming from the United Kingdom. We have Lou Elizondo giving a video message. And we have a lot of Brazilian research, including myself, telling about the case. At that event, I called about the official documentation about cases in Amazon, Operation Saucer in the 70s, and the Acre case involving indigenous people in 2013, 2014, and until 2016. And this was a very good one, very, very, very big event. A lot of people was there, a lot of crowd present of people watching, television live, YouTube live in the channel of official channel of the Brazilian Senate. And one thing that was strange after this event is that the media was doing a lot of coverage before the event, and after this happened, they simply silenced it. We thought they would make jokes or something like, or talk serious. It was the two options, but they simply silent. Let's just forget. Let's pretend that this simply didn't exist. This was very, very strange. This happening again with the NDAA in US, the National Defense Authorization Act, approved by Biden, with all the UFO law about whistleblowers and so on, that was signed at the end of December. And the media simply did the same thing. They simply pretended that this didn't happen. So I don't know. Maybe they were thinking, "Oh my God, this is becoming huge. This will be very disruptive to the status quo." So we could notice there. So don't know. They simply didn't talk about it.
Yeah, that's it's frustrating, isn't it? That it's just totally swept under the rug, totally ignored. Did the hearing kind of change anything in terms of, is there going to be anything new put into action in the government or in any other circles? Is anything new coming from this? Was it productive?
Yes, because this was the opportunity for me, for example, to become in contact with the senators, with the congressmen. We have another meetings. We have two lunch and dinner with these politicians, where we talked about what we could do to get deeper in this topic. And I mentioned the laws that we could have, help a lot, like we have in US. I passed all the US laws to the Brazilian senators. Maybe could do a mirror or something even better that they were doing there. But in Brazil, the fact, we had a promise of the senator Eduardo Girão that he would reach the military to talk with them and try to get more documentation and more information and more collaboration for them. But in this meantime, we had elections in Brazil, a very, very complicated elections. Our country is totally divided. The election was 50.1% against 49.9%. So our country is completely divided. Our Congress was invaded 2 days ago, on Sunday. And so we have a lot of political instability in Brazil, and this is making things very, very difficult to talk about, to get the moment again for this topic. I think we lost a lot of months until we could start the conversation again.
Yeah. Do you think there's going to be more hearings, and do you know when the next one will be?
I was thinking, I was very confident that we would have because the first hearing was just the people like researchers and witnesses like Bob Salas and us talking about the official stories. We didn't have any government official talking there. So naturally, the next hearing would be military coming, politicians coming, and talking about themselves, what they know, what they could talk, logically respecting national defense issues. But as I said, with all this political instability, I simply don't know what will happen. I simply just cannot get in touch this time with senators because I know they were busy with all these complicated things to deal. So I'll have to wait some months, maybe a year, to get things more soft, uh, more calm, so I could get in contact again with them and start everything. Oh, did you talk with the military? Oh no. Oh, when you could talk? Oh, yes, I talked. The result is that one. Oh, in the hearing, when we could do another hearing and so on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully there'll be positive updates on that this year soon, in the coming months. Tell me, because you're obviously a UFO researcher, which cases have you spent the most time researching, and which cases do you find to be the most compelling?
Yeah, we have a lot of compelling cases. As I said, we have the official UFO night, where we don't have any doubt, any question that we had very, very technological, very intelligent phenomena here in Brazilian airspace, and it was confirmed by the Air Force. We have the 70s, the Operation Saucer, everything is documented. Almost 10 types of crafts that the military saw, and they sketched it in pictures, drawings, and a lot of pictures. Everything is in our national archives. We have this case in Varginha. Unfortunately, Varginha, we don't have any official documentation. The case was totally closed, totally closed by the military. But we have, I think, the Varginha is the case where we have a record of witnesses, a lot of witnesses, and not talking about just someone that saw a light. We call a physician, a doctor that was in hospital, not one doctor, but a lot of doctors.
Yeah.
One that did X-ray in the creature, one that saw the creature. We have very, very rich people, very influential people in Varginha, from traditional families in Varginha that get contact with the tapes, for example. We have military, a lot of testimony, video, recorded in video from the military that's simply kept hidden just to protect them, but is recorded. And with policemen, with the firemen, so a lot of compelling testimonies. I think there were, so this is that thing that turns the Varginha so compelling case, but unfortunately no documentation yet. And we had this last case, which is I personally was researching. I obtained the documentations about these cases in indigenous tribes. 100 pages, more than 100 pages of documentation, more than 20 minutes of videos, including testimonials and videos of the phenomena, recorded not only by indigenous, but by the anthropologists, PhDs in anthropology that was there in the indigenous villages. Very, very compelling case. Involving aggressive situations with people affected by light beams, people hospitalized by light beams, and involving indigenous, which is something like we never had before. Official documentation called official documentation talking about stories involving UFOs and indigenous people. So I think all these cases are very compelling. This was the core what we talk about in Senate, Brazilian Senate, and I think Brazil have maybe one of the richest documentation, richest openness to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by all the things going on with the Amazon and, like you say, the indigenous, because that's fascinating that they report that, because obviously they haven't been influenced by TV or by media or anything like that. But it's really, really interesting. But let's dive in a little bit more to Varginha, and you tell me a little bit more. What do you think happened there? Were there actual beings on the loose, in your opinion? Again, from the witness statements and everything like that, I know we haven't got any government record. But yeah, what do you think about the whole thing? Because I watched the James Fox's documentary Moment of Contact. I'd previously looked into it as well, and it's just such a fascinating case.
Yeah, I'm pretty convinced that we had these beings in Varginha. I don't have any questions. I could say, oh, it's 100% here because we don't know all the picture, but I'm pretty convinced that everything that was depicted in Moment of Contact, for example, documentary happened, except the fact of the aircraft, the ships. I have some difficulty to accept that they came from a ship or from an aircraft. I think this would be we would have more witnesses talking about that. For example, we have 20, 30, 50, don't know, testimonies about the creatures, and I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4 about the aircraft, the ship. So this
Hmm.
is a pattern that's very, very strange to me, and I have difficult to accept. But regarding the beings, I don't have any doubt that they were there, they were captured, and we have more than one. They were captured by the coordination between the police, the firemen, and the Brazilian army. People, if you didn't watch the documentary, watch this because it's very, very complete, rich of testimonies. As I said, influential people from military, from policemen, from firemen, and so on, and doctors.
Yeah,
So I think this is something that would explode. This is a time bomb that could explode any moment.
yeah,
And I think when it explode, will change the way we see the life.
yeah.
Because the videos that people say that exist, it would be a very huge in our limited world. Yes.
Do you believe that footage does exist? How strongly do you believe
Yes,
that?
I believe very, very strong that we have at least 3 videos. Uh, they know, the researchers, Marco Leal, which was co-producer of Moment of Contact, uh, Pacacini, which was the other researcher that was very, very threatened by the military, and 20 years after the event, now he's back
Hmm.
to research again. And they know where the videos are, the people that are the gatekeepers of the videos. The problem is that you probably have a chain of custody because this is a small city. So the policeman knows where the videos are. The U.S. Army knows, the Brazilian Army knows where the videos are. So I think it's not something like, oh, we have a family video here of the creature, and we simply could get the money and release the video. I think that we have a video that a lot of dangerous people know where they are located, and they know where who have the video, and so this is the big problem to release them.
Mm. So do you think it's in like somebody's house, but the military and the police have basically threatened them to say if that gets out, then we know who you are and where you live, or do you think it's somewhere like locked down, like somewhere in a secure location?
Yeah, Pacacini says that he has one video in a secure location. I
Mm.
don't know if it's 100% here, but I believe him because this in these years, decades, he never tell any lie that we could discover that was alive.
Hmm.
Contrary, he was every aspect very trustful, very confident about this topic. So I think this could be possible, but I don't have question that the doctors, the family of the doctors of the city have videos about it because they had cameras. They were very influent people. They analyzed the creatures, not one doctor but many doctors. So I think that the probability that we have more than one movie uh, made by doctors in the city is very, very, very high. Yeah.
Would you say it's very high chance that maybe that goes public in say the next year? by the end of 2023? What do you think the
Yeah,
chances are of that?
we have 20 years of this case, so it's
Yeah,
impossible to say no. Now it's the moment, because as I
yeah,
said, probably some of the doctors died, and the family
hmm,
has a heritage about the videos, and the families know the police and other people knows they have the video. So
hmm,
I think this is a very, very complicated one because people are afraid of their lives. So
yeah. Yeah, it's wild to think, isn't it? It's crazy to think that there could be footage of those beings
yeah.
uh, in somebody's house or on somebody's computer or wherever it is. Like, wow, what would we would give to see that? That would be unbelievable.
For example, Pacacini at that time wrote a book about everything that he he discovered. He had a lot of advantage because he grew up in a city very next to Varginha, called Três Corações, where he know all the military, a lot of militaries that participate in operations, and this enabled him to get the videos, to get the testimonies of the militaries, and the commanders discovered that. They discovered
Hmm.
that Pakachin was responsible to have this link with the military, and he was. We have documentation that I'm translating to English right now. That's the investigation about the Pakachin involvement. It's an investigation by the Brazilian army where they processed Pakashini and did inquiry against him, locked him 4 hours to get to do a lot of questions for him. And
Hmm.
after that episode, Pacacini simply vanished because he was very threatened by the military. And
Yeah,
this is a fact. We don't have any doubt about it because I have documentation. So in this example, why this topic is so complicated for people to come forward and talk what they know.
yeah. So you said a minute ago that you find it hard to kind of believe that there were so many people that saw the beings, but only a few people that saw the craft kind of coming down and crashing. So tell me, what do you think, that there wasn't a craft? Do you think the beings came from somewhere else? What is your take on that?
Yeah, like we talked previously, we have a
Mm,
lot of bodies of water and river. We have a river like green, it's called Green Hill River
mm-hmm,
in Varginha. And that is a story where the military was looking for creatures in this river uh, because it's a river that feeds all the city with water. So it's dangerous to have creatures that could, if you remember, a policeman was scratched by the creature and died days after this event. So you
yeah,
could imagine that the authorities were very worried about creatures in this river that could contaminate the water that the people are drinking. So that there are a lot of stories that they were searching for these creatures there. Maybe and they resembling like frogs or amphibious or reptiles, like big frogs and humanoid frogs. So my hypothesis they could simply come from the water. I don't know how, but is a pattern that is very consistent with other cases.
yeah. Wow. Um, so in that case, so you think they potentially came from the water? So you think there was no craft? What do you think about the again the witness at the end of the documentary who claims that they stood and watched a craft kind of flying around in like circles, almost looking for, like looking for somebody or something? What do you
Yeah,
make of that?
this is something very complicated to evaluate because after
Yeah.
the incident of Varginha, we have a lot of witness, not in the incident of Varginha, but after the incident, we have, or even the same, like the same month or something like. We don't have the dates exactly, but at that epoch, we have a lot of crafts seen by people, maybe searching for these beings,
Hmm.
uh, but are isolated testimonies that uh, don't let us uh, build the whole picture.
Yeah.
But I think it could be possible that or other crafts came to rescue or investigate what was happening with these creatures. maybe another phenomena. We could have, as I said, it's a very complicated thing. Maybe we could have a mix of phenomena happening with other beings, not the same beings, and so on.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to make the big picture about that.
Yeah,
And
definitely,
even the
definitely.
hospitals, I have people in the hospital. I have received the message recently. I posted in my YouTube some video of Varginha, and some people said, "Oh, I have worked for 20 years in the hospital. I was a nurse, and after the event, we had an event in hospital that a craft came very close to the building of the hospital, and we was very freaked. We freaked out about this craft coming, maybe to rescue, maybe to investigate about this creature. I don't know." But it's difficult to do a correlation. What the script was wanting to do there. Don't know.
Yeah. I think from our conversation, I can get the impression that you don't simply follow the kind of nuts and bolts angle. You know, you don't think it's simply just a physical craft that's made out of metal and people flying here. And I think you think that there's more to it than that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we'd be even more complicated. We could have simply beings appearing from portals. We could have this kind of craft coming from another dimension, not from space, but from another dimension. I think it's not healthy to put everything in the same box and say, oh, this all this phenomena has this origin.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of different cases, well, a lot of different situations. As I said, my situation, I saw the being coming from the Symphony Light. We hadn't any ship there.
Yeah.
So it's difficult for me to accept that we are, and a lot of different types of beings also. A lot of different types of shapes of crafts. So it's very difficult for me to put everything in the same box and say, oh, this has a prosaic explanation and this is the explanation.
Mm-hmm. What do you think are the potential kind of connections with consciousness?
Yeah, I have a personal example. In this event that I said about the light and the beings, I was observing for some hours. Never happened. I was in top of a hill with a pretty clear 36 degrees vision, and I started to simply take pictures of a cross that was building in the top of that mountain that they had the observation of the lighted beings. I was simply taking pictures of the sky. It was very you will see the photos, very clear sky with a lot of stars, a beautiful sky in the winter of Brazil. Very beautiful night in a new moon, so the luminosity was not affecting things. And simply after the third click on the camera, the phenomena appeared in the frame that was in zoom, observing the cross and the sky. So what's the probability to have some kind of world phenomena happening in our 36 degrees of view and happening just in the frame of the camera that was taking pictures? And this was what I didn't enter in details because of the time, but when I clicked the third, I saw the picture, I saw this big light forming, this golden light. And I said, what the hell is that? Something kind of problem with the camera. And I looked at it with my naked eyes and was there and was growing big. And I said, oh my God. So this is an example that I don't know, maybe my consciousness unlocked this event to happen. These beings wanted to happen, maybe there, don't know why. To influence me, to scare me, I don't know. To feed by my scary. I had this in this event. I had this hypothesis that this being was simply feeding themselves by my emotionals, my scary, my fear. I had this by the faces, by the face. I had this feeling. So I don't know. This is something that puts me a lot of confidence that we have something linked to the consciousness, because the probability to have this event happening in the frame of the camera with me focused on that was very low. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's really interesting. So we've established that you think UFOs in general represent multiple phenomena, probably, which I probably would go along with, because there's so many things that's hard to put together and so many different things to explain away. But do you think there's some kind of non-human intelligence on Earth with us, and do you think as well that some UFOs, even if not all, just even if it's a small number of UFOs, do you think they are actual just interplanetary spaceships, interplanetary craft piloted by extraterrestrial beings simply from another planet? Or do you think it's all more complicated than that?
Yeah, I think it's a mix. I really think about two great patterns. One is the technological beings that come from, I don't know, from other dimension or from other system that simply stalled here. Maybe these beings that we see, this case that we see in the sea, in the river, in the lakes, maybe something that stalled here. In the Amazon, Operation Saucer in Acre, we had a lot of incidents where the people saw the craft submerged in the water.
Mm-hmm.
For example, in the Tic Tac in US, we had this a very huge craft inside the sea, the ocean, and this Tic Tac submerging from and emerging from that big craft. So maybe they have bases, not fixed static bases, but maybe ships like aircraft carriers inside the ocean, for example, inside the rivers. In Brazil, we have rivers that was so big that they seems to be the oceans for in Amazon, for example.
Wow.
So it's perfect plausible to have something like that. In Operation Salsa, the commander in Holanda saw ships 100 meters of diameter emerging from the river. So I think it could be very possible that we have these beings installed here, maybe from here, or maybe coming from another place and installed here and using our water bars like a basis. And in these mountains regions, clear, I have the pattern where these lights and beings appear from nowhere. No crafts, no, just orbs coming from the ground, coming from the rocks, or just simply appearing in the ground, appearing near the trees, and simply disappearing. Some like in the dimension or something like that. So we have these two patterns, some technological and some interdimensional, something like that. That I'm observing here. Yeah.
Wow. Do you believe that the Brazilian government, or I say believe, but again, according to your research and people you've spoken to and everything like that, are you under the impression that the Brazilian government have recovered any craft? And same question about the US government. Obviously, there's a lot more kind of stories around that, more well known maybe. But yeah, do you think either or both governments have recovered craft?
Yeah, I think our country is a continental country in terms of area. I think the probability is something to like US to fall here is very big. So I'm confident that we have this. We don't have stories and evidence like, for example, Roswell and Aztec and Trinity in New Mexico, in US, but I think it's very possible. We just don't have any documentation or strong evidence to support it. Like in the US, have Varginha with some doubts, some questions. We had Magé. I don't know if people get interested in Magé in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. Everything was talking about a ship that crashed in Brazil. I investigated personally because it's very near from my house. I think it's possible to have it happen there, but not in the location that people are thinking, but in the middle of the forest, middle of the ecosystem protection area. I also had documents from the U.S. Army saying, "Oh yes, we have an operation there. We a lot of helicopters, and it was just a training." Okay, give me the reports of the training. Give me the documents of the training. Oh no, national security. We cannot talk about this training. And at this days, at this hour, at that location, so very strange. And I think something could happen there And something could happen that we don't even know, because, as I said, the continental area, a lot of indigenous area, fishermen village, people very very simple. It's very easy to the military to go there and recover these things without cause a lot of disturbing in the region. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. But you think it's likely that the US, you think the US most likely have, and quite possibly the Brazilian government too.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm very confident that everything that we know, US knows, and even requests our material to in
Yeah.
exchange of a lot of things. Yeah.
How much do you think they know? Like again, both governments. I want your kind of opinion on both. How much do you think the U.S. government know about UFOs and the nature of UFOs, and how much do you think the Brazilian government know? Do you think they know the same amount? Do you think they share information, or is the U.S. in possession of much more information? What do you think about all that?
Yeah, I think we have they share information, but I think in Brazil, as we don't have a lot of top class research laboratories, for example, or something like that, it's a very very good argument to US say, oh, give me, because I have a lot of infrastructure since the 40s, since Roswell, I investigated this. So I think for example, US has a lot of more a lot of more knowledge about materials, for example, metamaterials from these descriptors about the biology of these beings. Certainly, because in Brazil we have Varginha as an example. We have a lot of testimonies that say that beings were poorly examined here and fly to US to be examined here in top class laboratories, top level laboratories. So I think
Mm.
in terms of biology, in terms of materials, US is a lot ahead of Brazil. But logically, the case happened here, and the government knows this case exists. But I think both governments, they just simply don't know the origins. For example, where they come from, what they want. I think
Yeah.
these questions that they don't know.
Yeah. That's the really fascinating ones,
I
isn't it?
think US knows more the more materialistic stuff, the
Mm.
composition of the bodies, the composition of the materials, the properties. But
Yeah.
when we start to talk about the intentions, the
Mm.
consciousness, it's something that we it's a very very black hole that we can enter, and difficult to know what they know. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that sounds about right. Look, we're coming to the end of our time together today, Ronnie, but let's maybe to finish us up, let's do a kind of quick fire session, if you don't mind. Like we'll do kind of 5 or 10 questions, just answer kind of as quick as you can, as quick as you want. Probably like a minute or less, something like that.
Okay.
Let's just roll through a few, and then I'll get you out of here. So just give me again in brief your thoughts on crop circles. Are they connected to UFOs? In what is the connection? Just yeah, talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I think crop circles are very complicated because we have a lot of hoaxes, a lot of artists in England, for example, have a lot of artists that likes to do crop circles. So I think maybe 5%, like images, internet, maybe
Mm.
5% of the crop circles could be true, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe linked to the UFO phenomenon, or even a different kind of distinctive phenomenon. Yeah.
Yeah. Do they happen in Brazil as well, by the way? Do you have crop circles out there that you believe to be legitimate, at least some of them?
They happen, but the constructions are very poor compared to the other constructions, for example, in England.
Interesting.
And I think
Yeah.
it's difficult to say that we have legit crop circles here. That are
Okay.
researchers that thinks that they are legit. But I'm not specialized in crop circles. I didn't investigate it in the field, so maybe there
Yeah.
are more people that could talk more appropriate about that.
Got you. What about cattle mutilations? Again, it may not be it's probably not your specialist subject. But again, is it legitimate? Is it connected to the UFO phenomena or another of these phenomenon? And do they happen in Brazil?
Yeah, I have a lot of animal mutilations with witnesses that saw the beings, for example, the chupacabras, with very close distance, and not mutilation only cattle, mutilating dogs, goats, and chickens, and so on. And so it's a phenomenon very present here. and in some situations, people saw luminous phenomena near of these cases. So I think it could be related. Yes.
Yeah. What about abductions? The abduction phenomena. Same question.
Uh,
Just your thoughts.
it's very complicated because I think the most of the abductions occur during our sleep, our out of body experience, like our out of body experiences. As you notice, almost all the abductions, the people are on their beds, on your rooms. So we have. I'm very resistant to accept that these abductions happens in our physical world. I think they
Mm-hmm.
could happen in our another dimension, another out of body world, another physical world, not this physical world. But we have cases in Brazil where you have simply a ship that descends. People is awake in the middle of the field. The ship descends. The beings get the people. Sometimes people are paralyzed. They put in the craft, and they get the people again, miles and miles away where the people were, and the people were conscious. People was awakened. So these cases are very compelling. We have a lot of cases like that in Brazil.
Wow.
I have more. I think it's more. I'm more comfortable to believe in the physical abductions in this case. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say there are some cases where people are awake and during the daytime and stuff, but you mentioned it yourself.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. What about, again, just a minute on the kind of connection between UFOs and nukes?
Yeah, in Brazil we don't have experience. We have I think one or two cases where objects appeared near the nuclear stations. We don't have, for example,
Mm-hmm.
nuclear weapons or nuclear moved ships. We have only nuclear energy stations, traditional ones, and maybe because we don't have a lot of nuclear assets, we don't have a lot of cases linked between UFOs and nukes here in Brazil. So I think it's
Yeah.
we don't have a lot of information about it.
Yeah, fair enough. And you talked a little bit today about the kind of connection with water, which I was really pleased to hear, because there's something I've been thinking a lot more about recently, and like there often, very often, seems to be a connection with water, sources of water, bodies of water. So again, I know you've talked about it a little bit already, but just again, in a nutshell, why do you think they are so attracted to our water? Is it because they've got bases in there? Is it because they use the water for something? What do you think?
Uh, we know more about the space than our oceans, for example. So I
Mm.
think they use the oceans to hide themselves, to operate. For example, in Amazon, you know that they use the rivers as a road to move and attack these people and get in contact with these people, in indigenous and fishermen. Uh, so I think they use the use of the water bodies to hide themselves and to a transportation and operate there. Yeah.
Yeah. In your opinion, why cover-ups and why secrets, from governments particularly? Because everybody can have kind of a different opinion on this, right? Like you said, you mentioned earlier, maybe to keep the status quo. Maybe it's because they're trying to re-engineer technology and they haven't managed to crack it yet, and they're waiting, until they're ready to commercialize it. Maybe it's because the reality is scary and it's going to shake things up on our planet. But there's so many different speculations I could come up with. But what do you think maybe is your top speculation? What is your top theory on that?
Yeah, I'll give an example, a practical example. In state of Acre in Brazil, indigenous peoples being attacked by UFOs. For example, 2014, 2015, we don't have hospitalizations or deaths or disappearing people. So we have a lot of documentation about it. The government released. In 2016, we have had a UFO descended in the indigenous village. The flashlights completely get broken, didn't work. The indigenous was very very freaked about it. They shot with shotgun shots, a lot of shotgun shots in this object. This object emitted a flashlight, and these indigenous getting unconsciousness, get to hospital, admitted to hospital. and we don't have any register about what happened, official register about what happened in this incident. We know because the media, because the professors of the teachers of the village get these people to get hospitalized, because there are a lot of other indigenous with this guy that was hospitalized. And so when we get in the subject of death, hospitalizations, abductions, these more somber situations, the government keeps the secret, because I think this would really freak out to know that we are not in the top of chain of food. So I think it's very complicated. It's a barrier for us that we need to have this conversation sometime. So because it's happening, this could happen to us, so to our family. So I think government should be transparent about that. But it's very difficult. It's very difficult because we get the religious stuff and so on. So this is, I think is the main reason about the secret about this topic. Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And again, assuming there is something here, how long do you think they or it or whatever has been here? Do you think they came here a long time ago? Do you think they came here recently, or do you think they maybe have been here longer than us, or whatever?
Yeah, I think that it could be at least one civilization that's here for hundreds, for thousands of years, influencing us, maybe re-engineering our human biology, monitoring our human biology. This is one of the reasons that I think there was intelligence here in Amazon, for example. Why they were in Amazon, probing indigenous people. But if you think indigenous people carry almost a clear blood, a pure bloodline. So they could be simply probing to see to genetic evolutions and something like that. Maybe because they are doing these improvements in our bodies and creating our like their zoo, something like that. So I think could be the reason they are monitoring us. They are here for thousands of influencing, not only in biology but influencing theology, influence our religions, in apparitions that you say, oh, it's apparitions of the Catholic Church, but in fact they are not from Catholic Church. They are just pretending they are from saints or angels to influence us and deviate our civilization to where they want. So I think yes, I think I don't like to think they are evil, they are good. I think like everything in the universe, we have both yin yang. We have these creators, these people that want our as good as possible, to live more, to have a society without nukes and so on. But I think we have evil ones. I think you have, for example, as we discussed today, beings that appear and simply like to feed by our fear, by our negative emotions. So I think we have a fight happening every day, every hour here, and we just simply getting notes because we're not simply seeing. A fact that could be happening in another dimension or another space that we could hear but we cannot perceive.
Yeah, wow, that's really interesting. And CE5, I'm sure you've come across the term CE5.
Yes, it's a protocol of contact, very promoted by Stephen Greer, and he receiving a lot of money because of that. But in Brazil, we have the in 70s, we have a general of the Brazilian army, called General Shoa, very interested in UFO topic. He was a medium in spiritism. He had a lot of UFO sightings, and he was a 4-star general in Brazilian army. He saw a lot of videos of the Operation Saucer that was not published until this day. And General Shoa had his own protocol with a group to very similar to CE5, but in 70s, to in a location here, in a rural location here, to summon orbs and ships and so on that appear inside white solid smoke that would be informing, and they have a lot of contacts. He has a lot of books. A very respectful guy here in Brazil, and I think it's something that is real. I think because of him, because of his work, I read a lot of his work, but I don't know if it's anyone could. I have my questions if anyone could uh, do these protocols. Maybe people have some like antennas in their brains. Dr. Gary Nolan is studying a lot about it. Uh,
Yeah.
Maybe people have like mediums. No, we don't have not anyone. Oh, I want to become a medium today and talk with the dead. No, we know it's not possible. Uh, and I think that people that have more or abilities to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Wow. Again, really fascinating though. And it does, when you told me your story earlier about looking at, you're looking and you see the orange thing and then the beings, that kind of made me think a little bit CE5 as well. Like maybe you weren't intentionally following any protocol, but you were kind of wanting to see something and then you did see something. And I guess there's similarities there.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't have any thing that could block me to try. I just simply
mm,
don't have a group of people that, okay, let's do a C5 there and see if it
yeah.
works. But
Yeah.
I think that as a scientist, I think we need to try and see the
Yeah.
results. And if you try
Yeah.
again, you get the same results. You get some repeatable and something that could work, prove that could work. So it
Yeah.
was a question of the opportunity for me to try all the events that I go to the field, I simply go there and do my natural calm and relaxed feeling and start to observe, try to
Mhm.
see something, but nothing something natural. No, I didn't use any protocol, something like that.
Yeah, cool. Right, I got two more left for you, and they're two of the kind of the other big topics that I explore with this podcast. Obviously, I explore UFOs, but I also explore reality, psi phenomena, things like that, and what happens after we die. So, first of all, what are your thoughts on psi phenomena? Have you looked into it? Do you believe it's possible to have kind of extrasensory perception to see things or perceive things without using our senses that we're aware of? Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we have the gateway program and there in CIA US to remote viewing.
Hmm.
So I think there are, as I said, I have a lot of difficult to accept that anyone could be trained and be okay. You could train it and have a limited ability to do that, but I have a lot of. I was trained in remote viewing protocols. I know a lot of them, but I have a lot of difficult to accept that anyone that is trained could do all the stuff that these guys do. Maybe
Mm.
it's something is a prejudice for me, for example, but this is something that I tried and I didn't have much success. And but I have a lot of confidence that we have special people with genetics. This is the reason that witches were burned in the Middle Ages.
Yeah,
The people know they were paranormal and they just simply don't want the genetics
they
chain to
didn't
be
understand it.
transmitted to their sons to the next generation. So
Yeah.
I really think that we have special people with genetic and they know a lot of mediums in Brazil. Spiritism is a religion that's very a lot of adapt people practicing it, and I know a lot of families of mediums that the mother, the son, and the grandson was medium, and so
Hmm.
for me it's clearly something that is transmitted hereditary genetically. And I think there are special people with special genetical gems that could do it, and I
Yeah.
respect that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating, and you touched on mediums there, so that would be the other side of this question would be kind of, if it's not too personal for you, like what do you think happens after we die, and do you believe that mediums are really able to communicate with people who have deceased? Yeah, just talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I was created as a Catholic family,
Hmm.
but as soon as I grow with my questions, with my scientific questions. I've started to study another religions. I study a lot of spiritism because I have a lot of difficult to believe that we die and everything is gone, everything ends. I think this is just an avatar where we have experience, and we have to grow our consciousness and evolve our consciousness and do another experience and so on. This is my faith. My faith is not based in any religion, but in I drink a little in a little religions, for example, Buddhism, and Catholic, and Spiritism, and so on. So I really think we are here with a purpose, a temporary adventure, and after that experience, we'll have another adventure, and so on. I don't know when it ends. I know what's the final purpose, but I'm very confident that this is not the end, because for me there is no reason to just be here. Okay, I will spend my life drinking, go to the parties, and something. I wouldn't do it. I won't do anything to the society, to grow the society, to evolve this. I just simply live my simple life, partying, for example, if I could. I don't know. I don't know. It's the case. I think the case we are here to evolve us internally, evolve us as a society, contribute with each other, and do a mission here. Yeah, this is what I think. Yeah.
I definitely agree that this is not the end, and that it seems like the evidence suggests that there is going to be more after. What it's going to be, I don't know exactly, but we'll see. Have you question?
And to have a lot of childs that there's a lot of evidence of childs that born with all the memories of the past lives, and they say, like to the dead. So yes.
Yeah.
So we have this one, a lot of evidence that points to that direction. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Have you ever sat with a medium personally, or ever experienced any of these elements like psychic stuff, or communication with somebody deceased, or have you ever had any experience in these areas?
Yeah, I know a lot of people that are mediums. I never had, I don't have not much interest to be involved in the religion sessions, for example. So I didn't have this experience, but I have a lot of conversation with these people that do this kind of work, and I'm very interested in that. But I'm simply not interested in religion, so this is something that blocks me to participate more in sessions like that. For example, even with people I know, because I could. So this is the case. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. No, I agree. And I'm trying to look at all these topics from coming from, like a non-religious specific point of view, just coming from looking at science and looking at it objectively. And yeah, I think it's fascinating. But maybe if you know lots of mediums, maybe you should try and experience it more, because I don't think you need to follow you don't need to be a spiritualist or anything like that, I don't think, to sit and have an experience. But it sounds like you're on the right path anyway. Last thing, Rony, before I let you go, is there any kind of final words you want to leave with people that have watched or listened to this today? Do you want to leave any words of wisdom or any advice, or just anything at all? It can be anything.
Yeah, my advice to people is never believe in anything. Just hear, listen, search. Don't stay in the comfort zone. Go to the search. Go at the people that live these experiences has to say. Select what fits best for you, and if you want if you start to doubt if it's real or no, go to the field, go to a mountain, go to a forest, go to a preserved place, spend some nights there, try to interview people to see if there is any cases in the past in that area, and spend some nights that probably you'll see some phenomena. Like it's something that I give me advice, because it's the path I choose. I read a lot of books, a lot of interview, a lot of documentaries, but I never believed in anything. I just believe it when I started to by myself do my internal search for the truth, go to the field, put my boots on, and go there and start to see things by myself. So this is my as advice. If I could do any advice for people, it's follow this path. As I said, I will send you the pictures, the videos that I have. This week, please. I will release a very important case of a family that was silenced 20 years. I'm working a lot of documentation, with new documentation about this case in indigenous. I have something there right now that will translate in English. It's something that I do for the community, and that's all. And if you want to collaborate with me, to talk with me, I think the best channel for English speakers is Twitter, twitter.com/Rony Vernet.
I'll put it in the description as well.
Okay. And thank you for the invitation. Thank you for that you listened to this conversation. I think it was very rich. We treated a lot of topics, different topics. I hope people enjoy. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Rony. And like you said, I'll put all of those relevant links and the case that you mentioned you're releasing more of this week, which will be not this week when this is released, but it would have been a couple of weeks ago. But I'll put all of that in the description. I'll put your Twitter and anywhere else people can follow you and things like that. And thank you so much for your time today and for this, like you say, fascinating conversation. It was really, really interesting. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with the charismatic Rony Vernet. I hope you enjoyed it and learned some new things along the way. Please see the description for Rony's links along with our own. And please consider liking the episode, sharing it, and subscribing to our channel if you want to continue unraveling the universe with us. Thank you.